The desert night was still, almost unnaturally so. A velvet sky stretched over the Egyptian sands, its canvas punctured by countless stars, cold and eternal. Beneath this endless canopy, the pyramids loomed, their jagged silhouettes illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. They had stood here for millennia, their stones silent witnesses to the rise and fall of empires. Yet, as archaeologist Dr. Layla Hassan stared across the plateau, she could not escape the feeling that the monuments were speaking, that they had been speaking all along, and humanity had simply failed to listen. Layla was not an ordinary scholar. She had spent her career walking the thin line between accepted archaeology and the whispers of forbidden theories. Her colleagues often dismissed her as a dreamer, a woman too entranced by myths of star beings and sky visitors to maintain scientific rigor. But tonight, with the constellations perfectly aligned over Giza, she felt vindicated. The pyramids' angles, their orientations, their very presence seemed like a mirror of the heavens. Orion, she whispered to herself, tracing the 3 bright points in the sky. They gleamed back at her, as though mocking humanity's arrogance. The ancients had not simply built tombs, she thought. They had built messages. Messages written in stone, aligned with the cosmos, preserved for eternity. Ancient knowledge and stone historians had long marveled at the impossibility of the pyramids. Their precision defied explanation. Blocks weighing tons placed with uncanny accuracy, shafts aligned not to arbitrary points, but to stellar bodies light years away. Why would a culture obsessed with the afterlife invest such monumental effort in aligning their tombs with the stars, unless the stars themselves held the key? Layla flipped open her worn notebook, its pages filled with sketches and translations of forgotten texts. From the temple walls of Dendera to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, she had collected fragments of a narrative that no textbook dared publish. They spoke of beings descending from the sky, luminous figures with elongated skulls and eyes like molten gold. They taught humanity the principles of agriculture, mathematics, and architecture. They were remembered as gods, but Layla believed they were something else entirely. Visitors, not divine, but interstellar. And if her calculations were correct, the truth lay hidden beneath the paws of the great Sphinx, sealed away in a chamber untouched for thousands of years. The uneasy parallel of civilizations her thoughts turned to other worlds. Far beyond Egypt, the Mayans had built their temples in alignment with constellations, their myths describing winged serpents descending from the heavens. The Sumerians carved tablets showing sky beings traveling in fiery chariots. The Dogon tribe of West Africa somehow knew details about the Sirius star system, knowledge modern astronomy only confirmed with telescopes. How could so many cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, tell the same story? Her peers would argue mythology spreads, or that primitive people looked to the skies for inspiration. But Layla could not ignore the precision of their accounts. They were not imagining. They were remembering. The Chamber of Secrets, the excavation had been grueling. For weeks, her team had dug in silence under the burning sun, their efforts cloaked in secrecy. Officially, they were surveying the Sphinx for erosion damage. In reality, they were following seismic readings that hinted at hollow spaces beneath. A colossal guardian. That evening, when the last of the workers left, Layla and 2 trusted colleagues remained. With lanterns casting long shadows, they squeezed through a narrow opening revealed by their digging. Sand and dust filled their lungs as they crawled downward into the unknown. The passage led them into a chamber, a void carved with deliberate precision, its walls covered in faded inscriptions. Layla's breath caught in her throat. The air smelled of age, of history, buried and forgotten. Her lantern light revealed the carvings, not hieroglyphs of the usual gods and kings. These were different. Figures tall and thin, their skulls elongated, their arms outstretched as if offering gifts to mankind. Behind them, Carved in meticulous lines were shapes that bore no resemblance to chariots or boats. They were discs, domes, and elongated craft machines that bore an eerie similarity to modern depictions of spacecraft. Her heart raced. This is impossible, murmured Omar, her assistant, his voice trembling. No, Layla whispered, running her fingers across the ancient lines. This is exactly what I've been searching for. At the center of the wall, a large circular carving dominated the chamber. Stars encircled a radiant figure, beams of light connecting Earth to the constellation Orion. Beneath it, an inscription in archaic script read, "The Covenant of the Sky Ones, Keepers of Light, Guardians of the Seed." The Covenant of the Sky Ones. Words echoed in her mind. A covenant? With who? And for what purpose? Her academic training told her to document and analyze. But another part of her, the part that had always trusted her instincts, knew this was more than history. This was a message. The carving seemed to pulse in the flickering lantern light, as if alive. She leaned closer, tracing the lines of Orion. The 3 stars of the belt pointed directly to a smaller cluster, marked with unusual emphasis. It was not symbolic. It was a map. Suddenly, a low vibration rumbled through the chamber. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. The lantern flame sputtered. Omar stumbled backward, fear written across his face. What was that? He hissed. Layla steadied herself, refusing to let fear take hold. The past is waking up, she said softly, almost reverently. The weight of revelation. As they climbed back into the night air, Layla looked once more to Orion's belt glittering in the sky. The carvings below were not idle myth. They were instructions. Clues deliberately left for future generations. If humanity could decode them, perhaps it would understand its true origins, not as the isolated masters of Earth, but as children of a far greater cosmos. But with revelation came danger. Already, Layla imagined what governments, militaries, and corporations might do with such knowledge. If the covenant was real, it was never meant to be exploited, and yet something within her told her this discovery was not hers to bury. It was humanity's inheritance. The desert wind howled around her, carrying whispers of a past older than pharaohs, older than kings. The pyramids stood silent, but to Layla, their silence was not emptiness. It was waiting for the day when humanity would look to the stars and remember who had taught them to build, to measure, to dream. Waiting for the covenant of the Sky Ones to be fulfilled. The following morning, sunlight bathed the plateau in gold, but for Dr. Layla Hassan, the warmth of day felt almost unreal. Her mind was still trapped in the chamber beneath the Sphinx, replaying every carving, every alien figure etched into the stone. She had not slept. She could not. The words "covenant of the Sky Ones" burned in her mind as though seared into her very soul. Her colleagues were less enthused. Omar refused to speak much, avoiding her gaze as he packed equipment. The third member of their small team, Professor Nadia El-Rashid, regarded Layla with a mixture of awe and dread. Nadia, a linguist specializing in Proto-Egyptian scripts, had spent the night cross-referencing the inscriptions they copied from the walls. Her face was pale with exhaustion, but her eyes glittered with something sharp fear, maybe, or the intoxicating thrill of discovery. "You realize what this means, don't you?" Nadia whispered over breakfast. "If this is genuine, if this chamber predates dynastic Egypt, then everything we know about civilization collapses." Layla nodded slowly. Not collapses. Expands. The scholars divide later that week. Layla presented a sanitized version of her findings to a closed circle of Egyptologists in Cairo. She deliberately left out the alien-like carvings, showing only fragments of the star map and the unusual wording about a covenant. She hoped to spark interest without triggering ridicule, but ridicule came anyway. This is fantasy, scoffed Dr. Mahmoud Farouk, a respected historian. Orion is significant in Egyptian cosmology, yes, but that does not mean extraterrestrials. You're reading science fiction into sacred texts. Another colleague, Professor Reed from Oxford, leaned forward. Even if your inscriptions are authentic, they do not indicate contact with aliens. They reflect humanity's obsession with the heavens, nothing more. Layla clenched her fists beneath the table. And what of the precision? The shafts in the Great Pyramid align perfectly with Orion's belt. The star maps we uncovered mirror the sky not of today, but of 10,000 years ago. How could primitive builders achieve this without advanced knowledge? The room buzzed with whispers, some mocking, others uneasy. Nadia caught Layla's eye, silently urging her to stop before she ruined her reputation entirely. But Layla pressed. On. The ancients were not ignorant. They were taught. And I believe the chamber beneath the Sphinx proves it. The silence that followed was damning. Scholars exchanged knowing smirks. To them, Layla had crossed the line into pseudoscience. When the meeting ended, she overheard one colleague mutter, another Eric von Däniken wannabe. But not everyone dismissed her. That evening, a young researcher approached her privately. He spoke in a hushed voice, glancing over his shoulder. "You're not the first to see these patterns," he said, "but you might be the first to find the proof. Be careful, Dr. Hassan. Some truths are not meant for everyone." The hidden codex back at the excavation site, Layla's team returned to the chamber beneath the Sphinx. This time, Nadia carried advanced scanning equipment. As the devices hummed and pulsed, a section of the wall revealed a hollow space. Behind layers of stone lay a rectangular object sealed, but intact. With trembling hands, they pried it loose. It was a tablet, its surface dark as obsidian, etched with symbols that shimmered faintly in the lantern light. Unlike the sandstone carvings, this material seemed unnatural, almost metallic. "This isn't limestone," Nadia muttered. This feels engineered." The inscriptions were even stranger. Not quite hieroglyphs, not entirely cuneiform, but something older, something bridging cultures. Nadia's expertise allowed her to decode fragments, and as she read, her voice quavered. "To those who awaken this record, know that you hold the map of return. The covenant was sealed beneath Orion, where the seed of knowledge rests. Guard it well, for misuse shall bring ruin, but unity shall open the gates of the sky." Omar whispered a prayer under his breath. Layla's pulse thundered in her ears. The stellar map carved into the tablet was unmistakable: Orion's belt, Sirius, and several other constellations. Lines connected them like roots on a cosmic chart. But one particular star was marked with intensity, circled again and again. "What is that?" Omar asked, pointing to the marked star. Nadia adjusted her glasses. "It isn't part of Orion's belt. It's farther. I'll need astronomical charts, but it looks like—" She hesitated, her voice dropping. "A star system beyond. What the ancients should have known." Anomalies in the chamber. The moment they removed the tablet, the chamber changed. The air grew heavier, charged, as though an invisible current flowed through it. Their equipment flickered. Radios crackled with static, lanterns dimmed, and Nadia's scanner displayed impossible readings, spikes of electromagnetic energy rising and falling like a heartbeat. "Something's not right," Omar muttered, backing toward the passage. The walls themselves seemed to hum faintly. Layla pressed her hand against the stone and felt vibration beneath her fingertips. The chamber was alive, reacting to the tablet's removal. "We should leave," Nadia urged. "We don't know what we've triggered." But Layla shook her head. "Not yet. This chamber was designed as more than a tomb. It's a vault. The builders knew we would find this. The question is why now? The myths revisited that night, Layla pored over ancient texts by the dim glow of her tense lamp. She revisited the Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki beings who came from the heavens to shape humanity. She reread the Popol Vuh of the Maya, which describes sky gods descending in blazing light. She recalled the Egyptian gods, who were always depicted with elongated skulls and strange tools in their hands. What if they were all the same beings? Not gods, but travelers. Not myths, but memories. The Codex seemed to confirm it. Humanity had been given knowledge, but under a covenant set of conditions. If the inscriptions were to be believed, the star map was more than a chart. It was an invitation. The first warning the next morning, military vehicles rolled across the desert toward the excavation. Officials claimed they were conducting routine inspections, but their presence was no coincidence. Somehow, word of the discovery had spread. A stern officer demanded access to the chamber. Layla refused, citing the need for controlled excavation. But that night, under cover of darkness, armed men attempted to enter. Only Omar's quick-thinking collapsing part of the entry with loose sand kept the chamber sealed. They know. Nadia whispered, her face pale. And if they take the Codex, it won't be used for knowledge. It'll be weaponized. Layla stared at the obsidian tablet lying on her desk. Its star maps gleamed faintly, almost pulsing as if alive. She thought of the warning inscribed upon it: misuse shall bring ruin. For the first time, fear gnawed at her resolve. Had she opened a door humanity was not meant to walk through? The turning point that evening, as the desert winds howled outside. Layla made her decision. She would not surrender the Codex, but she also could not keep it hidden forever. Humanity needed to know, but in the right way, at the right time. She gathered her team. "We follow the map," she said firmly. "The ancients left us instructions. We need to understand where it leads. Only then can we decide whether the world is ready." Nadia bit her lip. "And if we awaken something we cannot control?" Layla's eyes burned with conviction. Then it was always meant to be awakened. The three of them stood in silence as the desert night pressed in around their camp. The Codex pulsed faintly on the table, its star maps shimmering like a living thing. Somewhere beyond Earth, beyond the reach of modern telescopes, a truth-weighted dot, and now, for the first time in thousands of years, humanity was on the verge of unlocking it. The desert swallowed sound. Night winds carried whispers across the sands, but inside the hidden chamber beneath the Sphinx, silence reigned. Dr. Layla Hassan stood with the obsidian codex in her hands, its weight far greater than its size. Its surface glowed faintly, as if the symbols etched upon it were responding to her very presence. The decision had been made. They would follow the map dot breaking through for days. Nadia analyzed the codex, translating its hybrid script into fragmented instructions. Beneath the constellation diagrams lay what appeared to be architectural schematics designs for something buried deeper still. "This chamber is only an antechamber," Nadia explained, her finger tracing a series of interlocking symbols. "There's another layer beneath us. The Codex calls it the sanctuary of the seed." Omar swallowed hard. "And you want to go down there?" Layla's eyes gleamed. "We have no choice. This is what the ancients wanted us to find." They worked in shifts, excavating the chamber floor until, on the seventh night, Omar's pickaxe struck something that rang like metal. Clearing away the sand revealed a smooth surface polished black, unmarred by time dot. It was not stone. It was engineered. Nadia's scanner went wild, flashing unreadable spikes of energy. The slab was circular, with faint grooves forming concentric rings. At its center, a small indentation waited, perfectly sized for the codex. With trembling hands, Layla placed the tablet into the depression. The chamber came alive. The descent into the complex light erupted, not torchlight, not fire, but pure radiance, white and blue, emanating from the floor. The grooves filled with streams of luminescence, spiraling outward like veins of energy. The black slab dissolved soundlessly, revealing a stairway descending into darkness. Omar backed away. No, this is wrong. This isn't human. That's the point, Layla whispered. Lanterns in hand, they began their descent. The stairway stretched far deeper than the Sphinx itself. Carved into smooth walls, it seemed to shimmer faintly. The air grew cooler, humming with unseen vibrations. At last, the passage opened into a colossal chamber, a subterranean hall, unlike anything on Earth. Its walls were crystalline, refracting their lantern light into endless prisms. Columns of polished stone rose high above, inlaid with veins of glowing material that pulsed like a heartbeat. At the center stood a structure unlike any they had seen, a towering obelisk of black crystal, suspended above the ground by invisible force. Around its base, concentric rings of metal turned slowly, each engraved with symbols both alien and familiar. This isn't a tomb, Nadia whispered. It's a machine. Alien technology approaching the obelisk. Layla felt her skin tingle. A low hum resonated in her bones, deep and primal. When she extended her hand, the crystal responded, casting holographic light into the air. Before them unfolded a star map, vast, three-dimensional, alive. Galaxies spiraled, stars burned, and roots of light connected systems like arteries in a cosmic body. Earth shimmered as a blue orb in the center, lines of light radiating outward to distant stars. My God, Nadia breathed. It's a network, an interstellar map. The hologram shifted, projecting scenes like memories. Luminous beings descending from the heavens, guiding humanity in agriculture, architecture, and governance. They were tall, with elongated skulls and radiant eyes, their hands carrying strange devices that bent light itself. These are the Sky Ones, Layla whispered. The hologram shifted again. A double helix of DNA rotated in the air, its strands intertwining with beams of light. The message was clear. Humanity had been guided, perhaps altered, by these visitors. Omar staggered back, shaking his head. No, this changes everything. Religion, history, everything we are. Layla's eyes shone with conviction. It doesn't erase who we are. It explains why we are. Conflict in the team. Not everyone shared her enthusiasm. We can't reveal this, Nadia insisted her, voice trembling. Do you realize what governments would do with this? They'd tear this place apart, strip it for weapons, for power. The codex itself warned us misuse brings ruin. Layla countered, and silence brings ignorance. For centuries, humanity has lived blind to its origins. This is our inheritance. Omar interjected sharply. Or our damnation. Maybe it was hidden for a reason. Maybe we're not ready. The three stood in tense silence, the holographic cosmos rotating above. Them, indifferent to human debate, unseen guardians. Suddenly, the obelisk pulsed brighter. The ground quaked, and a deep, resonant sound filled the chamber. The hologram shifted once more, not to maps or DNA, but to beings. Shadows of light took shape around the room, towering forms that flickered like living flame. Their faces were indistinct, their voices a chorus of tones beyond comprehension. Yet somehow, Layla understood. The covenant is not broken. The seed must be guarded. The time of alignment draws near. The message reverberated in her skull. Omar cried out, clutching his ears, while Nadia fell to her knees, whispering in fear. The guardians vanished as suddenly as they appeared, leaving only silence and the echo of their warning. Layla's heart thundered. She knew then they were not alone in this chamber. Something, whether consciousness or energy, still lingered. watching, waiting. The countdown begins on the obelisk's surface. New symbols ignited, spiraling outward in precise patterns. Nadia scanned frantically, decoding what she could. Her face drained of color. It's a sequence, a countdown. Layla leaned over her shoulder. Countdown to what? To an alignment, Nadia stammered. The codex said the covenant rests beneath Orion. Look, these symbols reference the stars. The alignment of Orion's belt with Earth's solstice. It happens in just a few days. Omar's voice was hoarse. And what happens then? Do they return? Do they destroy us? No one answered. The pulsing of the obelisk intensified, as though it too awaited the alignment, the weight of destiny as they emerged from the subterranean hall hours later. Dawn was breaking across the desert. The pyramids glowed in the rising sun, timeless and silent. Yet to Layla, they no longer seemed like monuments of the dead. They were beacons, anchors in a cosmic web, guiding humanity toward a fate written in the stars. She clutched the codex tightly. The countdown had begun, and with it, a choice. To reveal the truth to the world, and risk chaos. Or to protect the secret, and risk losing the greatest revelation in human history. The wind howled across the plateau, carrying the whispers of ancient builders, of star voyagers, of guardians unseen. For the first time in her life, Layla felt truly small, yet also part of something unimaginably vast. The awakening had begun. The days that followed blurred into a haze of urgency. Each sunrise brought the alignment closer, and with it, an unshakable tension that gripped Dr. Layla Hassan's camp. The codex glowed more brightly with every passing night, its star map, pulsing in synchrony with the heavens. It was as if the object itself anticipated the moment. Nadia buried herself in translations, muttering half-coherent fragments about destiny and consequence. Omar, once the most steadfast of them, grew increasingly withdrawn, haunted by visions he swore were not dreams but warnings. Layla herself felt pulled by an invisible tide, drawn toward a fate she neither understood nor fully feared. The countdown could not be stopped. The night of alignment at last. The night arrived. The desert lay under a sky sharper than glass, stars burning with unnatural brilliance. Orion dominated the heavens, its three belted jewels aligning perfectly with the pyramids. The air itself seemed electric, charged with anticipation. Layla stood at the base of the great pyramid, clutching the codex. Nadia was beside her, pale and trembling, her notes clutched in shaking hands. Omar lingered behind them, torn between duty and terror. "It's happening," Nadia whispered. "The texts were right. This is the covenant's hour." The ground rumbled. From deep beneath, a resonant hum rose, vibrating through stone and sand alike. The pyramids shimmered faintly, as if their very blocks were conduits of energy. Then, from the summit of the great pyramid, a beam of light shot skyward, pure, blinding, unearthly. Two smaller beams followed from the other pyramids, converging in the heavens, aligning perfectly with Orion's belt. The desert erupted in silence, as if the world itself held its breath. The chamber awakens. Without speaking, Layla led them back into the subterranean complex. The obelisk within the crystalline hall pulsed violently now, its rings spinning faster, its hum rising into a deafening chorus. Symbols flared across its surface, projecting holograms that filled the chamber with visions. Starships gliding across. Voids, luminous beings planting seeds of knowledge in primitive human settlements, and fiery wars that scarred worlds. Then came a voice resonant, layered, neither male nor female. "The covenant is fulfilled. The seed must choose." Layla staggered, clutching her temples. The words weren't spoken aloud, but embedded directly into her mind. "What seed?" she gasped. The hologram shifted. A figure of light stood before her, its form humanoid yet indistinct. It pointed not at the obelisk, not at the codex, but at her. Nadia's eyes widened. Layla, it's you. You're the seed. The revelation of the visitors, the figure of light, extended its hand. Images poured into Layla's mind, the first humans shaped from clay and guided by celestial teachers. Knowledge implanted, languages. Seeded, civilizations nudged toward progress. But woven into the tapestry was a deeper thread. The guardians had not merely visited. They had chosen vessels, individuals across generations who carried fragments of their essence. Bloodlines. The voice whispered in her thoughts. The covenant continues through them. Layla's knees buckled. Her entire life, her intuition, her obsession with the stars, the strange dream she could never explain it, was all part of something she had inherited. Omar shouted, his voice cracking. This is manipulation. They've been controlling us all along. But Layla could not turn away. She understood now. The visitors had not enslaved humanity. They had prepared it, given it tools, knowledge, and a chance to rise above its limits. Choice was not theirs. It was hers. The choice for humanity. The codex floated from her hands, suspended in the air by unseen force. The obelisk's rings halted, locking into place. The countdown reached its end. 2 holographic paths appeared before her. One was a vision of unity, nations uniting under shared knowledge, diseases cured, technology advancing beyond imagination. The other was a vision of rune wars fought with newfound weapons, greed consuming civilizations, humanity destroyed by its own hunger for power. The voice thundered. The seed decides. Reveal or conceal, illuminate or withhold. Nadia clutched Layla's arm desperately. Don't you see? If you release this knowledge, governments will fight over it. They'll tear the world apart. Omar countered, tears streaming down his face. And if you hide it, we stay blind. Humanity deserves to know where it came from, even if it destroys. You? Yes, Layla's heart pounded. The weight of civilization pressed upon her shoulders. Could humanity be trusted with such a revelation? Or would ignorance protect them better than truth? The collapse before she could decide, the chamber shuddered violently. Cracks spider-webbed across the crystalline walls. Dust rained from above, the alignments destabilizing it. Nadia cried, the structure won't hold. The holographic figure spoke once more. The covenant seals again. The choice remains with the seed. The obelisk fractured, blinding light pouring from within. The codex pulsed furiously, then hurtled back into Layla's hands. Run! Omar shouted. They sprinted through the collapsing passage, stone crashing down behind them. The stairway twisted and groaned, threatening to bury them alive. With one final leap, they burst from the opening beneath the Sphinx, just as the chamber caved in, swallowing the subterranean hall forever. The desert exploded with silence. The beams of light from the pyramids flickered, then vanished. The stars above returned to their natural glow, Orion steady and indifferent once more. The aftermath gasping for breath, covered in dust, the 3 of them collapsed on the sands. The codex lay in Layla's lap, its glow fading until it was no more than cold black stone again. It was over. Or perhaps it had only just begun. Nadia stared at the sky, her voice trembling. We almost changed the world tonight. Omar whispered bitterly. Or destroyed it. Layla said nothing. Her eyes remained fixed on Orion's belt, still gleaming in the heavens. The final decision in the weeks that followed, officials demanded answers about the collapsed excavation. Layla and her team gave them carefully crafted lies: erosion, structural instability, nothing more. The chamber, they insisted, was empty. Nothing of value was lost. The codex remained hidden in Layla's possession. Some nights, when the world was asleep, she would take it out and feel its faint hum against her palms, as if waiting for her decision. She had not chosen that night. Not fully. Perhaps humanity was not ready. Perhaps it never would be. But she knew one thing with certainty. The visitors were real. The covenant was real. And one day, when the stars aligned again, humanity would face the choice once more. Epilogue, the Watchers months later, Layla stood alone in the desert, gazing at the pyramids under another moonlit sky. The wind whispered across the sands, ancient and eternal. She held the codex close, its dark surface reflecting the stars not far above. Orion's belt shimmered faintly. Then, just for an instant, one of its stars flickered unnaturally once, twice. Like a signal, Layla's breath caught. The Watchers had not left. They were still here, still observing, still waiting. And she, the seed of their covenant, carried the weight of humanity's future in her hands. The interstellar secrets of ancient civilizations were no longer buried. They lived within her, waiting for the day humanity was ready to face the truth.